Well, hello, and welcome back. I'm AJ O'Neill. This is Beyond Code Live, and we are going to go over, not this. Whole numbers and programming. We're going to go over integer division and modulus. Also, if you are watching live either on Twitch or on YouTube, I have the comments open. I'm actually just opening them up on YouTube now, so feel free to comment with questions and let me know what you're thinking. So I'm just going to dive into this, and then towards the end we're going to get into some of the use cases, and I have another video where I solve a problem using these approaches. But first, we need a little bit of a arithmetic refresher because you probably haven't done integer division since basically grade school before decimal division was introduced. So an integer is a whole countable number, something that you can count on your fingers. So integers give exact values. You can add 1 and 2 and get 3. Assuming you don't overflow, which we won't talk about that right now, but if you use small integers in type systems with big numbers, you can get overflows, and that causes problems. A float is a high-ish precision decimal number. And I say high-ish precision because it's usually a good enough approximation. For example, 2/3 cannot be appropriately represented as a float, but you get an approximation that for most calculations is going to give you a number that is pretty darn close. However, sometimes it fails spectacularly, such as if you add 0.1 plus 0.2 in all programming languages, you get 0.3 bunch of zeros 4. This is not a bug. This is the way that the approximation of a float works. So there are differences between integer math and float math. Different programming languages handle them differently, but the differences are important. So let's talk about float division for a second. This is obvious. This is the division that you've been using for the last however many years. So we often in programming represent a float as a number with a period. So 10.0 is a float, 2.0 is a float as opposed to 10 or 2. We'll touch on that in a second. But if we divide 10 by 2, we get 5. No big surprise there. And if we divide that 5 by 2 again, we get 2.5. No big surprise here. Now integer division, likewise, 10 divided by 2 gives you 5, but 5 divided by 2 gives you not 2.5, but just 2, because you're only dealing with countable numbers, and you cannot count, despite what your mother might have told you when you were getting in trouble. 1, 2, 2.5. You cannot count to 2.5. It is not a countable number. Okay. So I was talking about before, different languages represent these differently. So for example, Go actually has integer division. If you divide 11 by 2 in Go, you will get 2. If you divide 11.0 by 2.0 in Go, you'll get 2.5, 2.5. And if you divide, say, 11.0 by 2 or 11 by 2.0, you'll get an error. The program won't even run at all. JavaScript and many other languages do not have integer division, so you have to use something like math.floor. Floor will always round down. It's the opposite of ceiling, which will always round up. So why do we care about integer division? One reason is time. So if it's 28 minutes until lunch is over, I want to know how many episodes of SAO can I reasonably watch? And if they're 10-minute episodes, which they're not, I think they're closer to like 18. But anyway, then we could say that it would be 2 episodes that I could watch. And money, if I've got $51 in my bank account, how many $2 bills can I get back? A $2 bill only is distributed as a whole unit of $2, so I could only get back 25. Likewise, teams. If there are 13 players, how many 4-man teams can we form? We can only form 3. There's no, in these equations, there's no sense of having more than whole numbers. And you find in programming, there are numerous occasions where, just like these, you're doing these types of things, and we'll get to a couple more examples at the end, where you need to deal in whole numbers. So now let's talk about modulus and remainders. So the percent sign is the mod operator, or the modulus operator, and what it does is it gives you a remainder. So mod is the inverse, more or less, of whole division. So if I do 10 mod 2, I would get back the remainder of 10 divided by 2. So I'm going to get back 0. Now, if I do 5 mod 2, then I will get back the remainder of 5 divided by 2, which is not a half, but 1, because it is what whole number is left over. When I divide 5 by 2, I get 2 pairings of 2. That adds up to 4. What's left over is a 1. And you can technically do mod operations with floats, but they don't make any sense. So I would caution you, if you ever come across a case where you start to do a mod with a float, to rethink that, because you're probably doing it wrong. Now, why do we care about mod? This is kind of where we marry the two together and we come up with some very good use cases here. So again, time. If you want to know how many minutes are left over, so this is actually kind of a bad example because we end up with 0. But if we wanted to find out how many hours is 525,600 minutes, we'd find that it's 8,760, and how many minutes are left over? None. So it is perfectly divisible into 8,760. Okay, let's take our money situation again. If I put $5 into a vending machine, what's my change for a $3.50 Snickers? Well, when you do whole numbers, you have to work at and you want to use whole numbers when you're doing money because you don't like getting wrong answers with money. People don't like it when their money is wrong. So you always typically try to find a way to work with whole numbers and integers when you're doing any sort of calculation with money. So we put everything in cents. So $1.50 divided by $1 is going to give me 1. And $1.50 mod $1 is going, that's right, 1, is going to give me 50. So that's the total number of pennies. Now, if I take that and I divide by the number of quarters, then I get 2. And if I were to mod 50 by 25, I would get 0. So there is a remainder of 50 cents when I'm dividing by dollars, and there is no remainder when I'm dividing by quarters. And then there's also cryptography. So basically, I won't go into this deeply, but if you are doing a modulus operation, so say you've got 101 mod 13, there are approximately 10 numbers between 0 and 100 that will go evenly into 13. But we don't, we could easily calculate with small numbers, we can easily calculate which numbers those are, but we lose the information to tell what our start number was. So I can tell you, we could get the result of this, which I probably should have printed the result of this, but the number that it gives me could have been the result of one of any 10 other numbers. And where this becomes really useful is when you're working with really, really big numbers, like 2048-bit numbers, 1024-bit numbers, like this example here is a prime number that's rather large. If you take a really, really big number and you mod it by another really, really big number, it takes extensive computing power, more computing power than is available to calculate all of the numbers that are in that space. Because although 1024 or 2048 doesn't seem like a really big number. When you take something to the power of that, so you're taking 2 to the power of that large number, it gives you a very, very huge number. And then when you're working with really, really huge numbers, the probability, basically a computer cannot compute all of the numbers, say in between math.pow, or 2 to the 1024th to 2 to the 2048th. That number set is astronomically large. Like I said. Anyway, so back to time again. If we want to mix these together, if you want to figure out durations, you want to be doing whole number division and modulus to find remainders. So I just actually picked literally a random number, and I said, let's divide this number by 3600, which is representative of hours in seconds. So 3600 is 1 hour in seconds. Then we get back 106. So that means that we've got 106 hours. So now let's take our, I did something wrong there. I'll have to fix this. This number is wrong. I did that. Never mind. We'll get to that in a second. Okay. So then if I take that number of seconds and I mod it by the number of seconds in an hour, I get back the number of seconds that are left over. And then I can do that again. I can take the number of seconds that are left over, divide it by seconds. In order to get minutes, there are 60 seconds in a minute, which leaves me with 8 minutes. And if I mod that, then I'll get back 26 seconds. So I end up with 106 hours, 8 minutes, 26 seconds. And then I put that in days down here as well, but I made a typo. So I will have to go back and edit this slide. And so this is the kind of problem that you'll actually face in coding interviews. These types of problems that deal with that are the types of problems that are solved with modulus are common in interview questions. And there's a link down in the doobly-doo for the, let's see, I actually don't have it in there yet, but it'll be in there by the time you're watching this video. So the vending machine problem, I've solved it in a couple of different ways over the course of an hour, three different solutions for it, and a little bit of debugging. So if you're interested in that, check that out. But that is essentially this problem right here. So I have some, but let's say I put in $2 into a vending machine. The items that I'm purchasing cost $1.82. What am I going to get back as change? So I would get back 0 quarters, but I'd have 18 pennies left over. And then that would go into 1 dime, and I'd have 8 pennies left over. And that would go into 1 nickel, and I'd have 3 pennies left over. So I would have 0 quarters, 1 dime, 1 nickel, 3 pennies. So anytime you're doing something that's like this, where you're segmenting large groups into smaller groups and kind of drilling down, so like you have a time duration, like you have change given back, these are the types of problems that are solved well by integer division and modulus. And as I said before, this stuff is great for coding interviews. So if this was useful for you, if it helped you understand integer division and modulus, if it cleared some stuff up for you, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to continue to watch other videos like this, make sure to subscribe to the live channel as well as the Beyond Code channel. And there's another channel or two down in the doobly-doo for some other stuff that I do. If you have any additional questions, if something you would like clarified, please let me know. Leave me a question down in the comments. Do you have any good tricks or tips for how to remember this, or other interview problems that you've seen this type of solution be appropriate for? Let me know in the comments. With all of that, you have an excellent night. I'll catch you later. Adios.